Every other school year at HBHA, 9th and 10th graders embark on a civil rights journey, starting with learning in the classroom and culminating with a tour of the South. Visiting various locations such as Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee, the Civil Rights Tour is a big hit among students and staff. Throughout the trip, we visited many historical monuments, museums, statues, churches, synagogues, and other important locations, all of which placed in a timeline that makes the experience very engaging for students. Learning the history of the civil rights movement is very important. HBHA knows this and curates a civil rights learning program that is both interesting, interactive, and fun. While this video will not be attempting to capture the scope of everything we did, it will highlight a few key events to give you a small taste on what we do on the civil rights trip at HBHA. One of the earlier stops on our trip was a tour of the Mississippi Delta, which took us on an exploration of many sites connected to the story of Emmett Till. Before we go to the actual sites, such as the petrol station, we will first talk about our pre-trip preparation. We had the privilege of listening to a presentation by Professor Tell from KU, whose book shed light on Till's life and legacy. His knowledge on the subject was very impressive. Our first stop was Money, Mississippi, the site of Bryant's grocery store, where the events leading up to Till's murder began. Emmett Till's alleged whistle at Carol Bryant, a white woman, led to his abduction and brutal murder at Graball Landing, a desolate stretch along the Tallahatchie River. When visiting the grocery store, we learned that in a government attempt to restore civil rights locations, the city restored the wrong grocery store on purpose because greedy landowners are looking to mislead tourists and misrepresent Emmett Till and his story. After visiting the grocery store, we went to Graball Landing. We stood on the banks of the river and thought about the injustice that took place here. A young boy who faced a very unjust punishment was murdered here, thrown into the river. Emmett's body was later found, and they held an open casket funeral. After doing lots of learning on this topic, I asked a special member of the crew to share his thoughts on this topic so far.
How you doing? My name is Gerald Anderson. I'm the bus driver for the group that's doing the Civil Rights Tour, and it was an honor and a pleasure to do such a thing. Most I get out of this is to where these kids, or these young ladies, young men can get an opportunity to get a piece of history hands-on, to see the actual places where the events occurred and happened to that young man. It's a part of history, you know. I mean, I wasn't born yet, so it's just great to be able to experience this with you all. This is my first time down here. I've seen parts of the movie Till, but to actually be in a place to see where, you know, the river is and where the market was is pretty intriguing.
After that, we visited the Emmett Till Interpretive Center, where we learned more through various signs, plaques, and exhibitions dedicated to Emmett Till. There was lots of interactive components, which made it very interesting for our group. Our final stop on this mini-tour was the Sumner Courthouse, where the trial of Emmett's murderers took place. Despite overwhelming evidence, the all-white jury acquitted the defendants, underscoring the deep-seated racism in the area. Our tour guide told us the story, showed us where each significant figure sat within the courthouse, and reminded us how important it is to honor his memory and learn of the injustices of the past and work towards a future where we are all treated with dignity and respect. In Selma, Alabama, we visited the Brown Chapel AME Church. Inside these walls, the seeds of a movement were sown. On a Sunday morning, members of the church gathered here, not for worship, but to prepare for a march. Led by leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, they gathered here in solidarity to demand one simple yet vital right, the right to vote. During our visit, we had the privilege to listen to Linda and Bruce Holmes speak. They taught us the history and the impact of what happened in this church. Their words were powerful, and their emotions were raw, unfiltered, and very interesting. The Selma March to Montgomery was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. It began as a peaceful protest, but on March 7, 1965, it became known as Bloody Sunday, when the marchers were met with violence and brutality at the hands of law enforcement on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We walked all the way to the Edmund Pettus Bridge and eventually crossed it. Walking in the footsteps of the marchers who came before us was a very valuable experience that I'm very glad to have been a part of. It was fascinating to be in the exact spot and walk in the exact place that the marchers did so many years ago. At the end of our journey, we visited the Outdoor Museum, which showcases various plaques, statues, and signs. It was a beautiful day outside, and it overall added to the experience. To me, this was the highlight of the trip. Walking in the exact steps of the people who marched in 1965 and crossing the same bridge was a very powerful moment, and one I will remember for a very long time. The civil rights trip at HBHA is an indescribable experience. The amount of places that you go, people you meet, and lessons you learn is something that not every school can offer. The teachers and staff that have run the trip over the years have truly tailored and perfected it. As I said before, the civil rights trip is a truly meaningful experience, and I hope that many of you are able to embark on this journey or a similar one at some point in your life.